Yeah. What just happened?
There's been another murder.
Found her last night.
This one of your missing persons?
That could be. She's late teens, maybe early 20s.
She's not missing anymore. What do you make of this?
Ever try to saw a bone with a flat blade? Say someone tried to remove her head.
Any connection to the Jane Doe? When are you going to admit there's somebody taking these girls?
It's not a first time. He's done it before. He'll do it again.
I can't get these off.
8 girls in the last 2 years. There's not one lead except her. Cindy Paulson. She got away.
Why don't you just start at the beginning?
He brought me to his place. He called it his den. It was more of attention.
Why isn't this guy on our list?
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, Al, good morning.
Hansen's an upstanding citizen.
I have testimony from a witness
She's a prostitute that refused a polygraph. It's a dead end.
She's not your problem. She's not our kid.
Well, she's someone's. We're looking for a white male, early 40s, history of sexual assault, and avid hunter. That's Hansen.
I need physical evidence.
We're reopening the case. This guy did it, and they let him get away with it.
Oh, my God.
He's gonna dump it all. Did you panic when you killed them? Yeah. You had their blood all over your hands. I didn't do that.
I need more.
Or he's gonna walk. I'm gonna see if you have the guts to be honest.
You think you can threaten me? You don't have any idea who I am.
I promise nothing's going to happen to you.
Look, he's going to take me. Help me, please.
Have you seen her?
Have you seen this girl?
He won't stop, and we know who he is. Drop the gun! Have you ever seen anybody do anything like this before?
Hello and welcome to The Complete Works, an in-depth look into the career and filmography of Nicolas Cage. My name is Mike Smith. Joining me on this journey into the depths of true Cagedom is my friend, co-host, and fellow Cageaholic,
Mike DeCriscio.
How you doing today, Mike?
I am doing, I was going to say great, but I'm okay, I guess.
You know what I appreciate is your honesty, Mike. That's what
I'm just trying to keep it real.
You kept it real. You kept it real good. Anyway, some background about the movie we're going to talk about, Mike. Throughout the 70s and 80s, Robert Hansen was a serial killer who hunted down and murdered at least 17 girls in the Alaskan wilderness before finally being jailed in 1983. Now, his crimes would go on to inspire several episodes of different police procedural TV shows, like Law & Order SVU, Cold Case, Criminal Minds. They've all referred to this guy, Robert Hansen, in some capacity. And there was actually a movie from 2007 called Naked Fear, which was loosely based on Hansen, although it wasn't until the movie we're talking about today, 2013's The Frozen Ground, that the real-life investigation into Robert Hansen would be portrayed on film. And the Alaskan setting of this story proved to be essential to director Scott Walker, who made his directorial debut with this film. In fact, Walker delayed filming by an entire 5 months. And the reason he did that was so that he could shoot the film as fall transitioned into winter. He said he wanted the weather to literally feel like it was closing in as the story progressed.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'm surprised that he had the clout to be able to delay filming for 5 months, considering this was his first film.
Yeah. That's a bold move.
That's one of those things that you would see on like Project Greenlight, and you would be like, that director's insane. Why would he do that kind of thing?
Yeah, don't give him money, Matt Damon.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, Hansen was ultimately caught by Jack Holcomb, and he's played by our boy Nicolas Cage in this movie. As for Hansen himself, Cage's Con Air co-star John Cusack takes on the role, which in a way is a direct flip from Con Air, because in that movie, Cusack was the cop and Nicolas Cage was the convict. Now, it's the other way around.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
This is the opposite Con Air movie that we didn't know we needed or wanted. I should also mention John Cusack also had a cameo in Adaptation, so there's a reunion there sort of as well. Vanessa Hudgens is in this movie. She was then best known for High School Musical. She plays a prostitute named Cindy Paulson who escaped Hansen and helps Cage take him down. Her pimp, Clay Johnson is played by rapper 50 Cent.
That's right.
And I know it's 50 Cent or 50 Cent. I feel like it's both. Like, I feel like at different times in his career, it's been either or.
It's like P. Diddy is also Diddy, is also Sean Combs, is also Puff Daddy.
Exactly. 50 Cent was also a producer on this movie, which is why I imagine he's in the movie in the first place. And from there, Radha Mitchell plays Cage's wife, Allie Halcombe. She was also Gerard Butler's wife in Olympus Has Fallen. Joni Lynn O'Keefe from Prison Break and The Vampire Diaries plays Shel Ringel. Dean Norris, Hank from Breaking Bad, plays Sergeant Lyle Haugsven. And then there's Kurt Fuller, who I know from Wayne's World, but Mike might know from Psych, because I know you're a big fan of that show.
Yes.
He plays D.A. Pat Clives. He's in this movie. Kevin Dunn from Veep and Luck and a whole lot of other HBO shows plays Lieutenant Bob Gent. He was also in Snake Eyes, so that makes this a Snake Eyes reunion as well. And finally, Brad William Henke plays Carl Galensky, and he was also in another Cage movie once before, World Trade Center. So there's a few different unions going on in this movie, Mike, so that's something cool, at least, right?
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, now this movie was written and directed by Scott Walker, not the Scott Walker who's the current governor of Wisconsin. Different guy.
Thank God.
And this was his directorial debut. He has yet to make another movie, although there are a couple of projects on IMDb that are listed as in development on his page. This movie got a very limited release in theaters and was released directly to video on demand on the same day. On a budget of about $19 million, this movie grossed about $5 million, so not great. The Frozen Ground was released on August 23rd, 2013, and if you weren't seeing that, you might have seen the latest attempt at a young adult-style franchise in the vein of the Hunger Games, The Mortal Instruments, City of Bones. It did not spawn a franchise.
Wow. Whoops.
Yeah. You could also have seen Joe Swanberg's mumblecore comedy drama Drinking Buddies, which is pretty good. You could have seen the drama that put actors like Lakeith Stanfield and Rami Malek on the map while allowing Brie Larson to deliver an incredible performance, Short Term 12, which is very good. And finally, you could have seen my favorite movie of this bunch, Adam Wingard's home invasion thriller, You're Next, came out on this day. And that movie's fucking awesome. People should go watch it if they haven't seen it. And I believe
friend of the show, Adam Wingard.
Yes, friend of the show, Adam Wingard. Mike, I don't think you've seen You're Next, right? I think we've talked about this.
I haven't, actually.
We've talked about this for like years. Like, you gotta watch this movie at some point. It's so good. Anyway, the IMDb plot synopsis for The Frozen Ground reads: an Alaska state trooper partners with a young woman who escaped the clutches of serial killer Robert Hansen to bring the murderer to justice, based on actual events. Now, Mike, what were your overall thoughts on The Frozen Ground?
My overall thoughts was that it's interesting that I didn't do a whole lot of research, as I often don't. That this is Scott Walker's first film, because it sort of feels like that. It sort of feels, and that he and that had the bold idea to delay filming, and he had this grand plan, because this feels like it's almost a movie. I mean, it mostly hits all the beats, and it does all the things.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's so close to being what could have been an interesting cat and mouse cop drama.
Sure.
But instead, it just sort of tells us everything, and then we just watch it.
Yeah,
and I didn't feel much. I didn't feel as much tension as the movie wanted me to feel, and that really undercuts the whole movie, because the whole movie is about is he gonna get him? Is he gonna convict him? All this stuff,
right?
Cop dramas always are.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, well, I think I'm with you. I feel like the parts of a good movie are here, right? I think Walker's direction is actually pretty good. The movie looks pretty good. The cinematography is pretty solid. I think pacing-wise, it's solid. I think he does a pretty good job of directing the movie. And the performances are mostly pretty good. There's some that I take issue with, but for the most part, they got a pretty good cast going on here, and they deliver They deliver. But it just feels like there's nothing new here. We have seen the story done so much better, so many other times in so many other movies. Just recently, I saw the new Lars von Trier movie, The House That Jack Built, which I talked about on the new FilmBook cast last week, which is also about a serial killer, and that takes a similar premise and does it 100 times better. That movie is so much better at creating tension and drama and comedy and whatever you want. And in fact, a lot of the stuff from The House That Jack Built almost feels directly lifted from some of the stuff in this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if Lars von Trier took inspiration from some of the stuff that Robert Hansen did in real life for that movie. In the end, I feel like this feels like a generic crime procedural that just doesn't do anything to like elevate the genre. It doesn't detract from the genre either. It just is.
It just exists.
It just exists, and it's kind of boring because of it. This feels like it would have been better served as like a true crime documentary, like an 8-part series on Netflix or something. You know?
Yeah. There's a moment because it says like based on actual events, which like every movie says that, so I didn't really believe it. Until the end, where it rolls the photo, like it, does that, like tells us the story of what happened afterwards, and shows us the like photos of the victims that were found.
Right,
and then it shows like the real life Cindy Paulson, and it says like this is the only time Cindy has shared her story, and I was like, oh no, like you deserve so much better than what this movie can give you. I could just imagine her like pouring her heart out, finally telling the story of what like really went down with this case, and like you get this direct to DVD movie. Like holy shit, I would have been so mad. I just feel like somebody just go hug Cindy Paulson is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that said, this is a video-on-demand movie, or at least it was released on video-on-demand at the same time as it was released in theaters, but it feels more like a real movie than the last few movies we've talked about, I think. I mean, excluding the Croods, because the Croods is great. Right. But like compared
Welcome to Croodscast.
Welcome to Croodscast. But like compared to like Seeking Justice or Trespass or Stolen, like, I mean, I think I had more fun watching Trespass and Stolen. I think I like those movies more, but this feels like more of a real movie than those those ones do. And I don't even know what I mean by that, but like when you're watching it, it's like, yeah, I could see this being in a theater,
I think it might be because of the incredible supporting cast. Like in Seeking Justice, like it's basically just Nick Cage and Guy Pearce, right?
Right, and January Jones.
Yeah, and January Jones. That's true. But like this one, it's got so many of like, oh, it's that guy.
Yes.
Like Kurt Fuller and Dean Norris, which is funny because with Dean Norris, we talked about earlier in the like very beginning of the podcast how much fun it was to be like, holy shit, that famous person now is in one scene.
Right.
Nick Offerman's that construction worker in
City of Angels.
City of Angels, yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where like that kind of isn't going to happen in these movies anymore, except for now. It's like, oh, it's Dean Norris. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of this, like Breaking Bad was already on TV and that kind of thing. So there's just a lot of like TV character actors, I feel like, are populating this movie, and that's kind of cool. It's a fun little game to play. Like, hey, it's that guy. Hey, it's that guy. Hey, it's that guy. Yeah. So the Frozen Ground does have that going for it.
Yeah, I think that also sort of, on one hand, makes it feel more like a movie, quote unquote, as we were just sort of talking about.
Right.
But also makes it feel like this should have been an hour-long SVU episode.
Yes.
It's just all TV actors.
Yes.
And it would have been great.
Yeah. It really feels like it should have been an SVU episode or something. And it was an SVU episode, actually.
Yeah.
I think it might have been 2 SVU episodes, actually. But, I don't have all the research laid out in front of me. And, I mean, when it was on TV, like on SVU and Criminal Minds and stuff, like they never used like Robert Hansen's name, I don't think. But they kind of just took like inspiration from the killings or like how he was captured and that kind of thing and made an episode about it like that, because that's what they do in those shows. But this is like really the only media that exists that's not outside of documentary form, because I'm sure there's been a couple of like TV specials about him and stuff. This is the only like narrative feature that exists about Robert Hansen in actuality. Like there's that one movie that takes inspiration, but this is the only one that's actually about him and his killings and the people that was involved in taking him down. So yeah, like you get one shot at this and you whiffed it. This is now, I mean, Nicolas Cage is the star of this movie, the guy who takes down Robert Hansen. What did you think of Cage in this movie?
I think he does a pretty good job. He's kind of playing the straight man cop sort of role, which I guess we've seen him do before.
Yeah.
And it goes, because I feel like because it's attempting to be a real life depiction of, or like a narrative depiction of a real life event, everyone is kind of constrained a little bit.
Yeah.
Or at least Cage is in his Cage freak out stuff. He doesn't really get to have that, although there is that on the edge going like paranoia, frayed man kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel any kind of pressure to take on a real character that experienced this? At least it's based on a real character for you, right?
Yeah, I felt a lot of pressure. I didn't want to let him down. I mean, Glenn Flothi to me is a real hero. His name in the movie is Jack Halcombe because he didn't want the real name in the movie. But when you're playing someone who is living and who is responsible for saving the lives of people, you want to make that person look good. And I told him that that's what my intention was. I wasn't going to go and, do sort of an operatic ghostwriter performance. I wanted something cinema verite, docudrama, something minimal, quiet, and it gave me a chance to, remind people I can also do that. But more importantly, I just didn't want to let Glenn down. I wanted him to be viewed as the hero that he is.
Talking about operatic performances, Ghostwriter, You Drive Angry, those are fun roles, but there is a completely different tone here. Is that what attracted you to the filmmaker and just the film itself?
Absolutely. I think I was actively trying to go outside the box with film performance, with film acting performance. I was trying to break rules. But with Frozen Ground, it gave me a chance to remind folks that that's not all I do. So I wanted to set up some counterpoint there, that there's more than one color in my palette, so that people could know that this isn't necessarily over the top. This is performance, operatic, surreal, abstract by design.
But I think he does a good job. Everyone I think in this movie does a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think everybody, for the most part, does a pretty good job in this movie. There's a couple, I'll talk about them in a bit, but I think Cage is pretty good in the movie. He's actually, I think the character as written, there's nothing going on. But Cage, by just being Cage and giving it his presence there, I think he gives the character a personality beyond what's there. And what's there is incredibly cliche. This guy is literally 2 weeks from retirement. And they say that a lot. Man, I'm 2 weeks from retirement. I shouldn't have to put up with this, but I am anyway because I'm a good cop.
Got to make sure the good guys defeat the bad guys.
Exactly. Once that happens within the first 10 minutes, where somebody says Cage says to somebody I'm 2 weeks from retirement. I shouldn't be on this case. And as soon as he says that, I was like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah, and he winked at the camera. Ding. Weird.
Yeah, exactly. But I think arguably the best scenes in the movie are just when it's him interacting with Kevin Dunn and Dean Norris. Just as cops, trying to be cops and trying to figure out where Robert Hansen's going to strike next and that kind of thing. I thought those scenes were pretty fun, just because it's those three actors together, just kind of shouting at each other and barking orders and stuff. I'm into that. That was cool.
Yeah.
Cage is good in those scenes.
Yeah, I like that stuff a lot too. I liked the scenes when, I don't know his name, the vice cop that he gets partnered with to help him walk. I don't know. He seems like another one of those character actors that I've seen before, so I don't know if you recognized him from anywhere, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, I loved I did really enjoy those scenes where it's Cage doing the cop work, kind of things that we get. But outside of that, it's not much happening here.
It's really not. So how do you think this role fits into the roles that we've seen Nicolas Cage play in other movies, Mike?
It's sort of we're starting to blend some movies. I think it's him as a father. That comes up a bunch, which we mentioned in the Croods. Although it's less. Welcome to Croods Cast. It's less just an outright fatherly role. Although he does have that relationship a bit with Cindy. He feels that compelled to act as her father, in a way. I think. And it's kind of gritty cop drama stuff. It's light on the action for as far as Cage has gone in this kind of era where it's mostly direct to video action movies,
right? Action or thrillers, stuff like Stolen and Seeking Justice and that kind of things. Yeah. I will say, we've seen Cage play a cop a few times before, right? Movies like It Could Happen to You, World Trade Center, Bad Lieutenant, Protocol New Orleans. And I think his turn here actually kind of reminded me of the beginning of World Trade Center. You know how in that movie where it's Cage is the cop, barking orders everybody else, he's the lieutenant, he's in charge. And Cage is very good at being that cop in charge, I feel like. I'm into that. That first 15 minutes of World Trade Center before the actual events of the movie happen are probably my favorite parts of the movie, because that's just Cage being a cop and being in command of his crew and everything. And you kind of get that throughout this movie too.
Right.
Where it's Cage barking orders at people and doing all that kind of stuff. He's leading his men and coming up with plans very quickly and efficiently. And I don't know, I was into that. I think Cage plays that very well.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, the scenes where he it confronts the DA who like won't sign the warrant kind of thing.
Right.
Where because like I just know Kurt Fuller as like Goofy or Woody the goofy like coroner from Psych who will like put his sandwich on the body and during the autopsy kind of thing.
Right.
So like Cage is like going off on this like hardcore. We need to get this guy's out. We need the evidence and all this stuff. And I'm just like. That's Kurt Fuller can't do that. You can't be a serious actor,
right? And as for me, I didn't really watch Psych that much, but I know Kurt Fuller as Russell from Wayne's World, where he's like the number 2 guy to Rob Lowe in that movie. So
yeah.
So that's what I saw, and I was like, and I was watching that, and it's like if Benjamin was an ice cream flavor, he'd be pralines and dick, and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's just. Honestly, it's not a great sign for the Frozen Ground that all I could think of was just like obscure lines from Wayne's World while I was watching it.
Yeah, but that's like your baseline anyway.
That's true. That's kind of like, how like you when you go to a cartoon and like somebody's like thought bubble has like a monkey doing symbols or whatever. That's me, but with Wayne's World quotes. It's
and Simpsons and Wayne's World. And
Simpsons and Wayne's World. Yeah. Now, what are the moments or scenes that stood out to you in the Frozen Ground, Mike? Is there anything else, in particular that jumps out?
I do want to shout out John Cusack's scenes. A lot of when he's in there, he is super creepy. Very, very not okay. Most of the time he's on the screen.
Yeah, he was in. I think it was this year or the next year. He was also in Grand Piano, so he just kind of had his sniping thing going on around the same time.
Yeah, and I just watched Grand Piano earlier this year, so I was like, oh look, it's the same thing. Look at that.
But yeah, I think he's pretty good as a serial killer, and he gets some rough scenes throughout the movie. Again, I think part of this was kind of... I feel like part of this movie was like shattered for me because I did just watch The House That Jack Built, which did everything this movie does is so much better. But there's, a lot of scenes in this movie of like the scene with the girl chained up while like a buddy drops off food. That was like, John Cusack being like, oh, I'm just a regular Joe.
I'm just a podunk Alaska guy.
Exactly. Which was like pretty chilling. And like, there's the scene where he eats dinner with his family, which is pretty good. And then the final scene where he loses his shit and like incriminates himself. Like, I think he does a pretty good job. But it's just like I just watched The House That Jack Built like a week and a half ago. So like Matt Dillon's serial killer is like in my head. And like, man, like John Cusack is good in this movie, but like Matt Dillon is like really great in that movie.
Yeah, it's so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I got to see that.
It's really good. It's really good. It's it's a rough watch.
Yeah, well, Lars von Trier. I get it.
Yeah, but there are parts of this movie that are also kind of a rough watch. I don't think it gets as intense as The House of Jack Built. But if you are susceptible to like, watching a serial killer torture women, then like maybe don't watch this movie. It's because there's a bit of that.
Yeah, luckily, I will sort of commend this movie for not being gratuitous with that stuff. Like, it's definitely there, and it's definitely happening. There's definitely violence towards women, but it doesn't like. Lavish in it like a lot of these movies can.
Yes.
Right? Like even the scene when Cusack takes that woman that he like the one victim we actually see him murdering out into the woods, and he shoots her, and then like when he kills her it's like she's out of frame, like we're focusing on him, like it's weird, like I don't know how to like quite interpret that,
right? But I
it's
get
not
what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not showing us all the gratuitous violence towards women.
Yeah, and actually that scene where Hanson lets the girl go in the woods and then snipes her from a distance, very intense, and also is like that scene is in The House of Jack Built. Like that,
really, that
movie lifts that scene straight up, and it is much more intense in that movie and much more horrifying. But yeah, anyway, this is not The House of Jack Built cast. This is the Nicolas Cage podcast. I do want to talk about Vanessa Hudgens in this movie.
Yes.
As what's her name? Cindy?
Cindy, yeah.
I was going to say Cyndi Lauper, but that can't be right. Cindy Paulson.
Nope.
Cindy
Incorrect.
Paulson. Yeah, and so she plays this kind of coke-addicted prostitute that turns into a stripper. And, this was 2013, and like you can I feel like throughout the movie you can feel Vanessa Hudgens trying to shake off her Disney image.
Oh yeah.
Like super hardcore, and especially like this was the same year she was in Spring Breakers and Machete Kills.
Wow.
And to me, like I like Spring Breakers a lot, and she's good in that movie, and I definitely saw Machete Kills, but I don't remember anything about it. But this whole role feels like she's trying too hard to get out of that Disney image for me.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't know this was the next thing she was in, or that it was like hot off the presses of High School Musical.
It was a couple years later, I think. Like it was, I think High School Musical 3 was in like 2010, something like that.
Okay.
And this was 2013, so it was a couple years later. She was also in that movie. It was like another Disney musical movie called like Band Slam or something. Because of course
that sounds sure. Yeah,
and I think she was in that. But like, yeah, there was like a period where she was trying to go really hard with the adult roles, and I feel like a lot of child actors do that. You know, a lot of child actors who are known for like big, like precocious kids in like Disney or Nickelodeon movies, like they will end up trying to do like crazy adult shit because like they want to shake off that like innocent image that they had. And Vanessa Hudgens went through that with Spring Breakers and this movie and Machete Kills. And I feel like, you know, since then that's kind of dialed back. You know, now she's in like that romantic Christmas comedy thing or whatever on Netflix. The Princess Switch or something, I think it's
something
called.
Like that. Yeah.
She's in that, and like she's doing musicals again, right? She's in like Grease Live and stuff like that on NBC. But yeah, this feels like a very specific moment in Vanessa Hudgens' career where she was trying to shed that Disney image, and I feel like it's a little exploitative at times. Granted, she was in like her mid-20s, so like she knew what she was doing. But she gets like her sequence at a strip club, and she gets like all the drug stuff, and like it just feels like she's trying too hard, you know?
Yeah, it's this weird conjunction of, is this like a real thing? Like, because this is based on true events. Like, Cindy Paulson is a real person.
Yeah.
I assume that this is based on her input in some fashion, right? But at what point does it become like, what's the edgiest thing we could have Vanessa Hudgens do?
Right. And then,
OD on coke off a toilet bowl in a strip club bathroom? Put it in the movie.
And then do a lap dance, like all that stuff.
What?
I also want to give a shout out to the music that's in the movie, like at the strip club, because it just feels like the most off-brand Quiet Riot cover band you can get.
Yes.
Like I don't know. I didn't know any of the songs that played in the movie, but like I felt like I knew them. Like they were, like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were like just close enough to Twisted Sister.
Yeah. Is this Whitesnake? No,
exactly.
Yeah, it definitely has that weird, like, and it's supposed to be set in the 80s, right? I think this.
Yes, it's 83, I believe.
Okay, yeah. So like, it's that kind of weird, like, trucker bar, hard rock, like heavy metal's not really a thing yet, sort of in the mainstream, and like, I don't know, it's just like, gross.
Yeah, although I will say to the music's point, I guess one of the songs that plays is from a guy who's like the band from a guy whose his sister was one of the victims of Robert Hansen.
Wow, really?
Like, in real life. So they used one of his songs in the strip club scene, I think.
Interesting.
So there is that as well. But yeah, otherwise, let's talk about 50 Cent a little bit, because I don't even know what he was doing in this movie.
Sure, yeah.
Because he was a producer on this movie, so I assume that's why they let him in the movie. I think his whole character is just like, it feels very extraneous, like everything to do with that character, just like, all right, and then this is also happening off to the side, I guess. But I really want to talk about his hair, because like, what the fuck was going on there?
I think that is just some like, what did pimps in the 80s look like? Yep, let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's Nicolas Cage with the bad hair in these movies.
That's a good point.
Usually it's Cage. This time around, Cage's hair is fine. 50 Cent has like this weird, like, it's not quite dreadlocks, but it's like, it's this, I don't even know how to describe it. It's But 50 Cent usually has like a shaved head.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's very odd.
He does not. It's very weird. Very weird.
Yeah, and his character very much felt so it's so extraneous. Like, it shows up. He's Vanessa Hudgens, like Cindy's pimp.
Yeah,
and he shows up at the strip club, like, you know, give me the money that you owe me, like, get back out on the corner kind of thing. And I was like, wow, that's weird that 50 Cent's going to be in this one scene of this movie. Right. But okay. And then he shows up and becomes like not a major character, but like he becomes important to the plot for a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? We don't need you in here.
Get out of here, 50 Cent.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem with this movie too, is that it starts out as you know, the story of Cage and the police procedural drama of tracking down the mass murder that's, we don't have a suspect yet, and like it starts out that way, and then it also becomes Cindy's story, but it like can't really handle both. I feel, and it doesn't really do Cindy's story justice, I don't think, at all, because it's like we were saying, it's this exploitive, edgy version of it.
Yeah, but what did you think of Cindy with Nicolas Cage, like their relationship throughout the movie?
It was odd, to say the least. But definitely it has a, father-daughter kind of thing. Like, Cindy comes from a broken home, and like that scene at the like skating rink where Cindy like tells Cage, or Vanessa Hudgens tells Cage's character, you don't understand, like, you can't begin to understand the trauma that I've been going through in my life, and you like get out of my way, kind of thing. And Cage sort of opens up about like the death of his sister and why he became a cop and all this stuff. So that, like, it was kind of interesting from then on. Like, it's a little more believable, I guess, like, because we don't really know why Cage's character is doing a lot of the stuff he's doing regarding her. But it still felt like rote. Like, you know what I mean? It just feels like the most basic version of what this could have been, like, can be. Exactly. But maybe that, like, is what really happened. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's, like, I think... I feel like a lot of people watch movies, and when they say like a movie is based on true events, I feel like some people will automatically take that to mean like, oh, this movie is good because it really happened. And that could not be further from the case. I think I think most things that really happened are boring.
You're not wrong.
And so when you make a movie based on true events, like, you need to spice it up and turn it into a movie. You know, and sometimes like things that really happened are crazy and awesome. Like, and when the People vs. O.J. Simpson came out, like, most of the stuff in that show like really happened in real life, and it was crazy. But I don't know, with this story, like, there's probably a lot of really fascinating stuff that really did happen. This movie either maybe portrays but does it boringly, or just leaves out entirely, and it's like,
yeah.
Like, I could be watching Mindhunter right now and getting the exact same out of this, but much better.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And even I even thought of that because there's a point where they reference the new FBI division, like the new division of the FBI about profiling killers. And I was like, oh yeah, Mindhunter was way better.
Yeah, exactly. And then the movie kind of ends with it doesn't really end with like a confrontation either, which is what I think it kind of lacks. It kind of just has Cusack like in a room for a half hour, and they're like interrogating him and collecting evidence while they're interrogating him. So like there is like kind of a chase between like him and like Cage and Cusack, but it feels like there should have been more there,
Especially because that scene ends, the conflict, the standoff happens over a piece of evidence that that they don't have. Right? Cage lies about the bracelet because he knows the victim had a twin bracelet, but they never found it, so he uses the one the sister gave it. You could have done that at the beginning and not had this search, and it would have had the same effect. I don't know. That was very weird. Like, timelines don't really make sense in this movie, I don't think.
Right.
It all just happens over one night, I think. But yeah, part of my problem, too, I think, with this movie is, like I said earlier, it removes the tension right away when it shows us. It's introduced that John Cusack might be the killer, right? He goes to the bakery, and we're not sure, and he's an upstanding gentleman, like all the usual stuff. We're like, we're not 100% sure, and then nope, he's got someone chained in the basement, and we know he's the killer. And then it's really just like a waiting game until the DA signs the warrant. Like, that's kind of all we're doing.
Yeah, that's true. And that's kind of the whole thing. The movie just it feels like it whiffs at every turn. Anytime it tries to build up tension, it deflates almost immediately. And then the movie ends with a slideshow of Hanson's victims in real life, and kind of ends with Cindy Paulson's picture saying this is the first time she told her story, and then it cuts to credits. And that's kind of all there is to The Frozen Ground. I feel like there's not much that really stood out in this movie to me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's one of those movies, every once in a while we'll get a movie that is not good or bad. It just kind of exists in this weird nexus of boring. It's just I think it's one of the more uninteresting movies that we watched for this podcast,
which is crazy because it's about a serial killer who killed potentially 30 victims.
Exactly. That should be insane. I should be that. This should be a Zodiac level movie.
Yes,
this should be something really cool. Basically, I just want a David Fincher movie.
Yeah, Mindhunter, Zodiac. Yeah,
yeah, but there's definitely something that could be made out of this that could be really fascinating and interesting. And The Frozen Ground is not it, which is unfortunate, but there it is. So is there anything else you want to talk about the movie, Mike, before we move on to Letterboxd reviews?
No, I think that's it. I guess mostly just give me more Dean Norris in general.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would like Dean Norris to be in more things. Although he was, after Breaking Bad, he was on Under the Dome for a couple of years.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which I didn't watch, but I know he was on that show. So there is that. And I think he's on that show Claws now, which I don't know.
So I think what we're getting at is season 2 of Complete Works is Dean Cast.
The Dean Cast.
The Dean Cast.
Yes, that's 100% what we'll do. Hopefully they bring him back for that Breaking Bad movie, even though his character is... it'll be very difficult to bring him back, but hopefully they find a way to do it.
The minerals will save him.
The minerals will save him. Jesus Christ, Marie! The minerals!
What do the people on Letterboxd have to say, Mike?
Let's move on to Letterboxd reviews for The Frozen Ground. Mostly negative stuff here. Here's a 1-star review of The Frozen Ground. When the Cage turns 50, you either rewatch one of his moments of genius, or you try to complete his filmography. I have been known to make the worst decisions ever, and this is no exception. Let's not talk about how this is a been there, done that 2-star thriller. Let's not talk about the fact that the Cage is the best thing in it, which unfortunately these days does not mean that much. Let's not talk about the fact that you know how this film will end before it even started. Instead, let's talk about the end credits and how they fucking pissed me off. Basing a thriller on real events is fine. Dramatizing those events is fine. Turning it into a subpar, standardized thriller is fine, but having the audacity to tack on a dedicated to all the victims and then providing a slideshow of said victims with a poppy rock song in the background is not fine. Not fine at all. It's cheap and disgusting. I need a shower. I'll leave it as 1 star as a birthday present to Nicolas Cage.
I wanted to say that because I forgot about it, actually. I had that same thought during the slideshow. I was like, you can't play like a power ballad over this. This needs to be slow, like classical composed music.
Yep.
But nope. Like, complete with lyrics, too. Very weird.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a 0.5-star review of The Frozen Ground. Guys, you have to promise me that if I'm snatched up and murdered by a serial killer, you only allow David Fincher to turn it into a movie. And fair. He knows his serial killer stuff. Right now, here's a 2.5-star review from Letterboxd. The good, 50 cents hair. The bad, the fact that a movie with both Cage and Cusack isn't awesome. The meh, everything else.
Yeah.
Here's a 1-star from Letterboxd. What better way to commemorate the actual victims than with a slideshow with some butt rock playing over the top? Cage and Hudgens are decent in this, but it's such a vanilla serial killer film, true story or not. Here's a 2.5-star review from Letterboxd. Entertaining but bizarre in that before the credits, it states its dedication to the real-life victims, yet the film is horrendously sexist in a 1987 way. Men handling and shaming women, women endlessly needing men's help in between cuddling teddy bears and baking. The age-old, teary-eyed rape story that seems more like the beginning of a porno, and let's not forget the sexy strip show from the 18-year-old rape victim.
Yeah.
It's a hangover movie. It's a movie you watch after you're home from airport travel. They even added a mysterious alley moose.
I forgot about that.
And a shitty quote at the beginning for some joie de vivre. I can't believe we did not mention the moose.
This movie is so bad, we forgot about the moose.
Yeah, there is a scene in the movie where it's Vanessa Hudgens just wandering down an alley and there's a moose there. And I don't know, it was just there. It was just... Very weird. Very weird indeed. Alright, and finally I got a 2-star review here from Letterboxd. That's the last one. When a film starts out with the main character, Nicolas Cage no less, proclaiming he's 2 weeks away from retirement, you know you're in for a wild ride. And there it is. That is The Frozen Ground. So we were not big fans of this movie, but hopefully the next one will be better, Mike. I think it will be, but we'll get into which movie that will be in just a bit. Right now, where can we find you online this week?
You can find me at MD Filmblog on Twitter.
And you can find me at MSmithFilmBlog on Twitter and all of our podcasts and stuff at FilmBook.com. Thank you so much for listening to The Complete Works. I'm Mike Smith. That's Mike DeCriscio. If you're listening to this review via our podcast on iTunes, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and take a moment to give us a review. Any feedback, compliments, topic discussions, and even hate mail can be sent directly to podcast@FilmBook.com. Please list the podcast you're emailing about in the title of your email, because we produce so many different ones, it's hard to keep track. We would love to hear from you. Now, this podcast will be off until 2019, I think, but we'll be back with a pretty exciting one as Nicolas Cage gets some critical acclaim for his role in David Gordon Green's Joe from 2014.
Wow.
I wanted to go see that movie when it came out, but it didn't play anywhere near me. and so I just never saw it.
Yeah.
And so I'm finally going to get to watch it now, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's one of those things where it's like, there are movies that I will seek out. Like, if I miss them in theaters, I will try to see them as soon as possible. But I feel like with like small-time dramas, I don't know, I'm less inclined to immediately seek them out if I can't catch them in theaters. So I always try to go see them in theaters when I can, because I know I'm going to miss them otherwise. I'll miss them otherwise. But I'll be able to rectify Joe at least in the next episode. Plus, you can keep an eye out for FilmBookcast, where I think we're probably talking Battle of Buster Scruggs next week, Mike. Is that what we agreed on?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so yeah, pretty excited to dig into that. We would talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but at some point we're going to cover it on this podcast because Nicolas Cage is in the movie, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm pumped. It's going to be the best.
Yes. Plus, our top 10 episode for 2018 should be coming out pretty soon too. Thanks so much for listening, guys, and thanks for getting in the cage.
Boom! Nick Cage, motherfucker! Boom! A Nick Cage, motherfucker! Boom! Nick Cage, motherfucker! Think about that while you're leaving Las Vegas! Boom! Nick Cage, motherfucker! Boom! A Nick Cage, motherfucker!
I couldn't tell if that was, like, supposed to be like, wow, life is weird, there's a moose here, or if that was supposed to be, like, some kind of, like, I can't think of the words. God damn it. I'm going to try that again, Mike.
Okay, yeah.
What's the word I'm trying to say?
Cinematography?
Yeah. No. Like filmic?
Mise en scène?
Yes, mise en scène. The only film term I remember. You know what? Forget it.
Okay. All right, I guess
You'll fix it in post.
Yeah, fix it in post.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
I'm so sorry.